She told me she was working late. But I saw her boss walking out of our house, fastening his belt. That image has been seared into my mind like a burned scar. The way he adjusted his tie, his hair still damp with sweat, and the casual arrogance of a man who thought no one was watching. He didn't see me. I sat in my car across the street, headlights off, hands trembling against the steering wheel. I told myself I must have imagined it, that maybe it wasn't what it looked like. But deep down, I knew. Her name is Claire. We'd been married for 11 years. No kids, by choice, mostly hers. She said she wanted to focus on her career, and I respected that. I thought we were a team. She was an account manager at a marketing firm, always polished, always put together, the type who never showed up anywhere without her nails done and her hair perfect. I used to admire her drive. Lately, it had started to feel like her job mattered more than anything else. I work in construction management. My days end with mud on my boots and the smell of sawdust clinging to my clothes. Claire's world was crisp suits and after-work cocktails. Sometimes, when she'd come home late smelling faintly of expensive cologne that wasn't mine, she'd laugh it off. "Oh, that's just Paul, my boss. He insists on hugging everyone. Don't be jealous." Paul. That name had hovered around our marriage for years like a shadow. I'd met him once at a company holiday party. Tall, graying temples, expensive watch that gleamed every time he shook someone's hand. The kind of man who spoke like he owned the air in the room. He shook my hand too hard, clapped me on the back like we were old friends. But his eyes kept drifting to Claire in her red dress that night. Watching. Always watching. I brushed it off back then. Who was I to be insecure? Claire chose me. That's what I kept telling myself. That Tuesday night, I'd gotten home earlier than usual. A site inspection had wrapped up ahead of schedule, and for once, traffic wasn't hell. I thought maybe I'd surprise Claire. Cook dinner. Light a few candles. Remind her that we still had something worth keeping. But the house was dark when I walked in. Her car wasn't in the driveway. I checked my phone, no messages. At 7:45, she texted, "Still at the office. Don't wait up. Love you." I almost believed it. Almost. Something gnawed at me, some primal instinct that told me not to trust those words. So I waited. Sat in the car across the street, engine off, heart racing, eyes fixed on our front door. I waited for an hour. 90 minutes. Long enough for doubt to creep in and make me feel like a paranoid fool. And then, at 9:20, I saw him. Paul. My wife's boss. Walking down our front steps like he owned them. Straightening his belt, tucking in his shirt, adjusting his tie. He pulled his phone from his pocket and smiled at the screen before slipping into his sleek black Audi. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't move. My mouth went dry, and the world tilted sideways. Claire came home 20 minutes later. She parked her car neatly, smoothed her skirt as she walked up the driveway, and unlocked the front door with that same tired grace she always carried. When she stepped inside, I could hear her humming softly through the open window. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I sat there in the darkness of my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, watching the lights turn on one by one inside our house. Kitchen. Living room. Bedroom. She poured herself a glass of wine, judging by the shadow on the curtain. She kicked off her heels. She moved through our house like nothing had happened, like I hadn't just watched her boss leave through the same door she'd just entered. And I stayed there. Frozen. Silent. Knowing everything had changed. When I finally forced myself to go inside, she was curled on the couch, laptop open, tapping away at emails like the dedicated employee she pretended to be. She looked up at me and smiled. "Hey, babe. Long day." I stared at her, wondering if I was losing my mind. Wondering if she could see the truth written across my face. "Yeah," I said quietly, dropping my keys on the counter. "Long day." She didn't notice the tremor in my voice. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. I watched her that night more carefully than ever before. Every movement. Every glance. Every word. And when she finally fell asleep beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the phantom echo of Paul's footsteps leaving my house. I knew I couldn't ignore it. I needed proof. Something undeniable. Something she couldn't laugh off with a clever excuse. And that was the night I decided, if Claire was hiding something, I was going to uncover it, piece by piece. But I didn't realize then how deep the betrayal ran, or how much it would cost me to learn the truth. The next morning, Claire moved through our kitchen with the same ease she always had, humming softly as she poured her coffee, scrolling her phone with one hand, car keys dangling from the other. To anyone else, she looked like the same wife I'd known for 11 years. But after what I saw the night before, everything about her seemed like an act. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving, her perfume lingering in the air like smoke after a fire. "Don't wait up if I'm late again. Paul wants revisions on the campaign." Paul. The name hit differently now. Hearing her say it out loud made my stomach twist. I forced a smile and said, "No problem. Take your time." But the second the door shut behind her, my chest tightened with a suffocating pressure. At work, I couldn't concentrate. Blueprints blurred, conversations with my crew felt hollow. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him again, Paul, stepping out of my house with his belt in his hands. By lunch, I made a decision I never thought I'd make in my marriage. I called a guy I knew from a past project, someone who'd gone private after years in law enforcement. He did investigative work now. "Rick," I said, lowering my voice though no one was around. "I need a favor. Off the record." By the end of the day, I was sitting in his office, a dingy strip mall space that smelled faintly of stale coffee. Rick slid a small black device across the desk, a GPS tracker. "This will tell you everywhere she goes," he said. "But once you start, there's no unseeing what you find." I drove home with the tracker heavy in my pocket. Claire wasn't there yet. I crouched beside her silver sedan, hands shaking as I fixed it beneath the rear bumper. The magnetic click sounded louder than thunder. That evening she came home around 9, laptop bag slung over her shoulder, face flushed. "Sorry I'm late," she said, leaning down to kiss me. Paul kept us locked in the conference room. It was brutal. I just nodded, forcing my jaw to stay relaxed. Inside, rage simmered so hot it scared me. Later, when she showered, I opened the tracking app. My stomach flipped as the map loaded. She hadn't been anywhere near her office. The blue dot showed her car parked for 3 hours at the Marriott downtown. A hotel. I sat there on the edge of the bed, staring at the screen, my throat dry, the sound of running water muffled behind the bathroom door. My wife was lying to me, and I finally had proof. But proof wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I made a vow to myself that night, the next time she said she was working late, I'd follow her. And whatever I discovered, I'd be ready. The following Thursday, Claire told me she'd be stuck in the office late again. She said it so casually, slipping her heels on by the door, her hair pulled tight into that perfect bun. She kissed me goodbye with lips that still tasted faintly of wine, then disappeared into the night like a woman with nothing to hide. But this time, I was ready. The moment her car turned the corner, I grabbed my keys and followed. I kept my headlights far back, my chest tight, hands slick against the steering wheel. Every stoplight felt like a test of patience. Every turn she took chipped away at the thin layer of denial I'd been clinging to. The tracker app on my phone confirmed what I already feared. She wasn't heading downtown toward her office. She was drifting toward the Marriott. Again. I parked across the street, hidden in the shadow of an oak tree. My heart hammered so loud I swore the people on the sidewalk could hear it. Claire's silver sedan pulled smoothly into the lot. She didn't rush. She didn't look around. She just stepped out, smoothed her skirt, and walked inside like she belonged there. 5 minutes later, I saw him. Paul. He arrived in his black Audi, valet handing him the keys with a smile. He didn't carry a briefcase. No files. No signs of work. Just himself, confident and smug, as though this was routine. They didn't meet in the lobby. That told me everything I needed to know. They didn't need to. They already had a room. My palms stung from how hard I gripped the steering wheel. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. I could have stormed across the street, demanded answers, dragged her out by the wrist. But something in me held back. Anger alone wasn't enough. If I confronted them now, they'd deny it, twist it, gaslight me until I doubted my own eyes. No. I needed to see more. So I waited. Hours crawled by, the streetlights buzzing faintly above me, traffic thinning until the city around me felt hollow. My thoughts spiraled. Every memory of our marriage, our first vacation, our quiet Sunday mornings, the way she once looked at me when I walked into a room, all of it replayed in my head like a cruel montage. And now every scene was tainted. At 11:32, the hotel doors slid open again. Claire emerged first. Her hair was slightly looser now, her lipstick faded. She was laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years, light and unguarded. Paul followed behind her, not even bothering to keep distance. He touched her back as if it belonged to him. I felt my stomach drop. They crossed the parking lot together, and I shrank lower in my seat, terrified she'd see me, even though part of me wanted her to. She walked to her car, he to his. They stood between the two vehicles for a moment, close enough that their foreheads touched. Then he kissed her. Long. Intimate. The kind of kiss that erases doubt. That was it. That was the proof I could never unsee. Claire got into her car and drove away, heading back toward our neighborhood. Paul lingered a moment, checking his phone again before sliding into his Audi. He looked satisfied. I didn't follow Claire. I couldn't. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, streetlights bleeding into a blur. My mind was a storm I couldn't escape. By the time I pulled into our driveway, it was nearly 1 in the morning. Her car was already there. The kitchen light glowed faintly through the curtains. I sat in my truck for a long while, staring at the silhouette of the woman I thought I knew. She moved around the kitchen, pouring a glass of water, tidying the counter. When she finally turned off the light and disappeared down the hall, I felt a rage rise in me so sharp it burned the back of my throat. But I didn't storm inside. Not yet. I needed to think. To plan. When I finally crawled into bed, Claire was already asleep, breathing evenly, one arm draped lazily across the sheets. I lay there beside her, staring at the ceiling, the echo of her laughter with Paul still ringing in my ears. And in that silence, a new thought took root, dangerous, heavy, but undeniable. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about power. If she thought she could outsmart me, live a double life under my roof, then she hadn't realized who she married. I build things for a living. I know how to study details, how to find weaknesses, how to dismantle and rebuild until nothing is left standing of the original. And that night, as my wife slept beside me, I swore I would use those same skills on the truth. Because if Claire wanted to play games, I'd play them better. The morning after I saw Claire with Paul, the house felt foreign. She moved around the kitchen barefoot, pouring coffee, humming under her breath, the same routine as always. But now every detail was poisoned. She asked me if I wanted toast. I said no. My voice sounded strange even to me, like it belonged to someone else. I studied her carefully. The faint mark at the edge of her collarbone. The way her hair was tied in a messy knot instead of the neat bun she usually wore to work. Little signs. Signs I might have ignored before. Not now. Late night? I asked, breaking the silence. She didn't flinch. She didn't pause. She just smiled and shrugged. Yeah, Paul kept us locked in that conference room again. I swear, he's going to work me into an early grave. Paul. She could say his name so easily, while I still felt bile rising every time it crossed my mind. I forced a chuckle, sipping my coffee. You must be his favorite employee. He sure keeps you close. Her eyes flickered up at me for just a fraction of a second. Something passed across her face, caution, maybe fear, before she masked it with a playful roll of her eyes. Don't be jealous, she teased, touching my arm. You know you're the only one I come home to. The words cut sharper than any insult. Because I knew she believed them, or at least wanted me to believe them. I let it go. For now. But inside, I was already building something. A quiet confrontation. A strategy. That evening, I followed through. I told her I'd be working late at the site, a small lie that gave me space. Instead, I went home early. Parked down the street. Waited. At 8:15, headlights swept across the driveway. Claire's car. She stepped out with her laptop bag and a takeout container. She moved inside as if nothing were out of place. I gave her 20 minutes before I walked in. The smell of Chinese takeout filled the kitchen. She sat at the table, chopsticks in hand, scrolling through her phone. When she saw me, she smiled wide. You're early. I thought you had inspections tonight. I set my keys down on the counter, watching her. Plans changed. Her eyes lingered on me a moment longer than usual, like she was measuring something. Then she nodded and went back to her food. I sat across from her. So, I said casually, did you go out for lunch today? She blinked, chopsticks pausing midair. What? No, just ate at my desk. Why? I leaned back in my chair, pretending to be nonchalant. Funny. I thought I saw you near the Marriott downtown. Must have been someone else. Her face went pale for a split second. Then she laughed, too loudly, shaking her head. Marriott? Babe, come on. You know me better than that. I barely have time for a bathroom break at work, let alone a hotel. She said it so smoothly, so firmly, that if I hadn't been there the night before, I might have doubted myself. But I had seen her. I had seen them. I didn't press further. Instead, I let the silence stretch between us, thick and heavy. She filled it with chatter about deadlines, office politics, how Paul was such a perfectionist. Every word she spoke felt like another blade twisting inside me. That night, lying beside her again, I realized the truth: she was never going to confess. Not willingly. She would smile, deflect, lie until her last breath if it kept her secret intact. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to take it from her. Piece by piece. So I started small. I checked her purse again. Found another receipt, this time for 2 glasses of wine at a rooftop bar. Dated Tuesday night, when she'd claimed she was buried in paperwork. I slipped it back carefully. Then I checked her laptop when she left it unattended. No emails, no messages, she was too careful. But the browser history told a different story. Marriott reservations. A saved page for executive suites. That was enough to tighten the knot in my chest. And yet, every evening, she came home with the same bright smile, the same affectionate gestures, the same lies slipping from her lips as easily as breath. Until one night, I decided to push harder. We were sitting on the couch, TV flickering, her legs curled beneath her. She leaned against me, wine glass in hand. "You work too much," I said suddenly. She glanced up at me, surprised. "What do you mean?" "Always at the office. Always with Paul." I let his name hang heavy in the air. "Sometimes I wonder if you're married to me or to him." Her laughter was sharp, forced. "Don't be ridiculous." I turned to face her fully. "Am I?" For a moment, her mask cracked. Just a flicker. Then she set her glass down and kissed my cheek. "You're being paranoid. You know I love you." But her voice shook. Just enough for me to hear it. And in that moment, I knew the game had shifted. She was still lying. But she knew I was watching now. I didn't sleep much after that night on the couch. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Claire's face, that quick flicker of panic she tried to bury under a laugh. It haunted me. It drove me. By Friday, I knew I couldn't just play games anymore. I needed something solid, something she couldn't talk her way out of. That evening, I left work early. I didn't tell her. Instead, I parked near the Marriott again, hidden in plain sight among the other cars. The tracker showed her dot moving steadily toward me, as predictable now as the setting sun. At 7:42, she pulled into the lot. I stayed low, watching as she stepped out of her car. Black dress. Red lipstick. Not the outfit of a woman working late. 10 minutes later, Paul arrived. He walked straight past the front desk like he owned the place. She was waiting for him by the elevators. I saw them embrace before the doors slid shut. My stomach twisted, but I forced myself to stay calm. I waited another half hour before slipping into the lobby myself. The receptionist barely looked at me as I strode past, my pulse thundering in my ears. On the 15th floor, the hallway smelled faintly of perfume and carpet cleaner. I stood there for a long moment, palms sweating, before I pulled out my phone. I opened the tracking app. The dot was right in front of me, room 1527. I didn't knock. I didn't storm inside. Instead, I took out my phone and raised it. The door was cracked just enough to hear them. Her laugh floated through, light, breathless. His voice followed, low and intimate. Then silence, broken by the unmistakable creak of the mattress. My chest caved in. My vision blurred. But my hand stayed steady as I pressed record. 2 minutes. That's all I captured. Enough sound, enough evidence to shatter any excuse. I walked away before I could hear more. If I stayed, I wasn't sure what I'd do. By the time I drove home, my body felt hollow, like I was nothing but bone and rage wrapped in skin. The house was dark. I sat in the living room with the lights off, waiting. At 11:26, headlights swept across the driveway. Claire walked in moments later, heels dangling from her hand, lipstick faded. She froze when she saw me sitting there in the shadows. "Jesus, you scared me," she laughed, setting her purse down. "Why are you sitting in the dark?" I didn't answer. I just placed my phone on the coffee table and pressed play. Her laugh. His voice. The creak of the bed. Claire's face drained of color. She stumbled back a step, her mouth opening but no words coming out. "Still at the office, huh?" I said quietly. Tears welled in her eyes instantly. She reached for me, but I pulled back before she could touch me. "Wait," she whispered, shaking her head. "It's not what you think." I laughed then, a sound so bitter it didn't even feel like mine. "Not what I think." "Claire, I sat outside that room. I heard you. I saw you with him." Her lips trembled, her hands twisting nervously at her sides. "Please. Let me explain." But I was already on my feet, towering over her. My voice was steady now, colder than I'd ever heard it. "No more explanations. No more lies. You've been caught. She broke then, sobbing into her hands. But I felt nothing. No pity. No love. Just a hollow ache where my marriage used to be. For a long moment, the only sound was her crying and the faint replay of her betrayal echoing from my phone. Finally, I leaned in close, my words slicing through the air like a knife. You destroyed us. For him. For your boss. Her sobs quieted, her body rigid. She wiped her tears and looked up at me with something new in her eyes, defiance. And when she spoke, her words were sharp enough to make my blood run cold. You think this is about him? You have no idea what this is really about. You think this is about him? Claire's voice was sharp now, her tears already drying on her cheeks. You really think I'd risk everything for Paul? The name came out like venom. I stared at her, my pulse pounding in my ears. That's exactly what you did. You threw our marriage into the trash for your boss. She laughed then, a short, bitter sound that didn't belong to the woman I thought I knew. God, you're so blind. It was never about him. It was about me. About the life I wanted, the life you could never give me. Her words sliced clean through me. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I clenched my fists. The life we built together wasn't enough. 11 years, Claire. Everything I gave you, everything I sacrificed, and you wanted more. Her eyes flashed. Yes. I wanted more than construction dust and takeout dinners. More than weekends stuck in this lifeless house, waiting for you to come home exhausted and half-present. Paul offered me something different. He offered me, possibility. Possibility? I spat the word back at her. He offered you a hotel room and a lie. That's what you traded our marriage for. She turned away then, her shoulders trembling. You don't understand. He sees me. He listens to me. He makes me feel alive in a way you haven't in years. I took a step closer, my voice low, trembling with fury. You could have told me you were unhappy. You could have fought for us. Instead, you chose to humiliate me in my own home. With him. She whipped around, her eyes blazing. You think you're the only victim here? Do you know how suffocating it's been? Watching my life shrink smaller every year, while you bury yourself in work. I felt invisible, and Paul made me feel like I mattered. Her words echoed in the silence of the room. For a long time, neither of us moved. Finally, I spoke, my voice raw. So what now? You expect me to forgive you? To accept that you've been sleeping with my wife behind my back, and we just move on? Her lip trembled again. For a second, I saw the woman I once knew, the woman I'd married. Then her expression hardened. No. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said coldly. Because I don't regret it. I regret that you found out. I regret that this is how it had to end. But I don't regret him. The room tilted. My chest burned. I felt the last thread holding our marriage together snap. And? I whispered. She nodded, folding her arms. I've been planning to leave you for months. Paul and I, we talked about a future. I just hadn't figured out when to tell you. I staggered back like she'd struck me. A future? With him? He's your boss, Claire. You're a secret to him. Do you really think you're his future? For the first time, doubt flickered in her eyes. Just for a second. But then she straightened, defiant again. You don't know him like I do. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping me. No, Claire. I know men like him. I saw the way he looked at you the first time we met. You're not special to him. You're convenient. She flinched, but her voice rose. Even if that's true, at least he wanted me. At least he made me feel alive. That's more than I can say about you. Silence filled the room, heavy and suffocating. My heart pounded, my throat a knot of rage and heartbreak. Finally, I whispered, "Then you've already made your choice." Claire's face softened then, her eyes filling with something that looked almost like sorrow. "I did," she said quietly. And in that moment, I realized the truth: the woman I married was gone. She stood before me, but she wasn't mine anymore. The days after her confession were a blur of silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind that presses against your chest until breathing feels like a chore. Claire and I still lived under the same roof, but it was no longer a home. It was a battlefield where every glance, every pause, every clink of a glass carried the weight of everything left unsaid. She stopped trying to explain. Stopped apologizing. Instead, she moved around the house like a ghost, silent and efficient. She still cooked dinner, still folded laundry, still made the bed, as if keeping up the rituals of marriage could hide the fact that the marriage itself was already dead. I ate in silence. Slept in silence. Woke in silence. But inside, I was screaming. Every night, when she turned away from me in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought of her laughter in that hotel room, of Paul's hand on her back. My chest burned with rage and grief in equal measure. I wanted to confront her again. To demand more answers. To tear apart every lie she had ever told me. But what would be the point? She had already admitted enough to destroy us. And yet, I stayed. Why? Pride, maybe. Or the fear of what came next. Divorce wasn't just words on paper, it was dismantling a life, a history, a promise. I wasn't ready to face that wreckage. Not yet. One evening, I came home to find her sitting at the table, suitcase by her side. My stomach dropped. "I'm staying at a friend's for a while," she said softly, not meeting my eyes. I almost asked if she meant Paul, but stopped myself. The answer didn't matter. "Fine," I said flatly, walking past her. My voice didn't even sound like mine anymore. She stood then, tears brimming in her eyes. I never wanted it to be like this. I froze. And yet here we are. She reached for me, her fingers brushing my arm. I pulled away like her touch burned. Her shoulders sagged. She picked up the suitcase and walked toward the door. Her footsteps echoed in the hallway, too loud, too final. At the threshold, she paused. "I'm sorry," she whispered. The door clicked shut behind her. And just like that, the silence swallowed me whole. For the first time in 11 years, I was truly alone in our house. I wandered from room to room, touching the furniture, the walls, the life we had built, and realized it all felt foreign now, like a museum exhibit of a marriage that once existed. I poured myself a drink and sat on the couch in the dark. The glass trembled in my hand as I thought about everything I had lost, everything she had thrown away. But then, a darker thought crept in. If she believed she could walk out of my life so easily. If she believed she could rewrite our story with him. Then she didn't know me at all. Because I wasn't finished. The house stayed quiet after Claire left. Too quiet. Every corner echoed with her absence, the perfume on her dresser, the half-empty mug she left on the counter, the faint imprint of her head on the pillow beside mine. I thought the silence would drive me mad. Instead, it became my companion. At first, I waited for her calls, her texts, some sign that she regretted walking out. But the phone stayed cold, the screen dark. She hadn't just left me, she had erased me. Nights were the hardest. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, remembering the sound of her laugh in that hotel room, the way she looked at Paul like I no longer existed. The images came in waves, relentless and cruel. I drank too much. I stopped answering friends. Work became mechanical, just another way to fill the hours until the sun went down again. But slowly, something inside me shifted. One night, I opened the tracking app out of habit, forgetting the device was still on her car. The blue dot glowed back at me, steady at the same hotel I'd seen before. Hours later, it moved to his house. Then back again. I realized she hadn't chosen me, or us. She hadn't even chosen him. She had chosen the lie. The fantasy. The version of herself she thought she could become by running from the life we built. And with that realization came a strange calm. She didn't deserve my rage anymore. She didn't deserve the nights I wasted replaying her betrayal. She didn't deserve me at all. The next morning, I packed her remaining clothes into boxes. I took off my wedding ring and placed it on top of the pile. Then I left them by the door with a note that said simply, "It's done." When she came by to collect them, I wasn't home. I didn't need another confrontation. I didn't need her tears, or her excuses, or her defiance. That night, for the first time in months, I slept. The silence didn't crush me anymore. It felt clean. Empty, yes. But empty like a foundation waiting for something new to be built. I know I'll carry the scar of her betrayal forever. I know there will always be nights when I wonder what I missed, what I could have done differently. But scars aren't weaknesses, they're reminders. And mine will remind me of this. The woman I loved died the moment she chose him over us. The marriage I fought for was gone long before I saw her boss leaving my house, fastening his belt. All that's left is me. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough.